Hi everyone, I'm Nyandire Reinhard Bonke, a first-year MPhil student at pursuing MPhil in Conservation Leadership, Department of Geography, University of Cambridge. And I'm on a Chevening Scholarship for the same, both Chevening and Cambridge Trust. So I'm here to just give my personal sort of professional experience towards wildlife conservation and my contribution in presentation to the Cambridge Zero Climate Change Festival that is running next week, yeah, sure. So I would give my experience from Nairobi National Park, a very special park to my heart, something I've really fought so hard to ensure that we safeguard the posterity of not only Nairobi National Park, but Kenya's areas of ecological importance. It is a developing nation, and we've experienced and we will continue experiencing a lot of conflict between development and the conservation sector. So, by profession, I've worked with the National Environmental Management Authority, Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, at the Friends of Nairobi National Park, and briefly with the International Union for Conservation of Nature back in Nairobi, Kenya. So ideally, I've worked in all the key environmental thematic areas, and I landed into wildlife conservation. And this is my experience and what I am here for, to advocate for sustainable development through under the 17th Sustainable Development Goal on global partnership to achieve sustainability. So I'll go straight to my presentation and my contribution to the festival. So like I've said, this is my presentation, Nyandira Reinhard, and it is entitled "A Storm Over Paradise" because Kenya's protected areas are under continuous threat from development activities, and it is a case of what I call sibling rivalry, between the climate change sector. Economic sector, wildlife conservation sector, and all the other key environmental thematic sectors that are not really coordinating together. So I'll give a story briefly about what the problem I faced is. It's not a scientific presentation; it is my own professional experience and how I view things from my perspective, having worked in the wildlife sector for the past 5 years. So Nairobi National Park, for those of you who know it and those who may not know it, that is the pictorial presentation of Nairobi National Park. You can see the city far behind and a very green space just bordering the city. So it is a specially unique park in that it is the only park, I think, in the whole world with 4 of the big 5 animals right within a capital city. And it is the oldest park in East and Central Africa, having been gazetted in the year 1946. It is also the highly endangered black rhino sanctuary, again in East Africa. It hosts the now endangered Maasai giraffe. Nairobi National Park is also an IUCN declared important bird area. It lies within the greater Athi Kapiti ecosystem, or what used to be the migration corridor connecting Nairobi National Park and the Amboseli National Park through the Athi Kapiti migration triangles. So what used to be known in the back in the 80s, they have studies, they have videos, they have photos to show the Masai Mara migration of wild beasts was never the 7th wonder of the world. I think it was among the wonders, yes, but the migration between of wildlife between Nairobi National Park and the 3 triangles within the Athi Kapiti ecosystem, and to Amboseli and Mount Kenya, sometimes to the Ngong Hills, was an amazing migration movement of wild beast, giraffe, and zebras. But we no longer have that due to a lot of factors, some of which I will explain a little bit later. So when did it start? When did it start raining? the map you can see there is the migration route, like I've mentioned. So this is the Nairobi National Park, a very small park. It's 117 square kilometer, and this is the dispersal area within which it heavily depended. So the migration used to happen. The orange arrow is where now the migration cannot happen because of course of urbanization and encroachment and land fragmentation within the dispersal area. And where this green, it's sort of moderately threatened. But what is happening? This is where the airport is, the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, around this area. But what happened around along this line? There's a huge highway, the Namanga Road, which separated this particular triangle to this one. So during the construction, some wildlife were trapped this side, others this side, and we've had some photos and videos of some of them trying to go back, but they can't. They're just looking uh, with I don't know whatever they're feeling, but looking at the other side, maybe admiring to go back to their home, but they can't. So they still can move around this area, but they can't move back to the park or to the dispersal area. If they try crossing the road, some we've had road kills of wildlife and all that. So the Kapiti Migration Corridor, as you see it, was and is still gazetted wildlife conservation area back in 1949. And because this the Maasai community and the Kamba community living on this particular area, they were pro conservation. So there was a lot of interaction between them and wildlife, and there was such symbiotic relationship until other people from different tribes, which or who are not traditionally wildlife conservation. I mean, not even just conservationists, but not traditionally pastoralists, moved to the area, changing the land use and all that, putting more pressure to the corridor. So with the park size of 170 square kilometer, it depended heavily and still depends heavily on this ecosystem, which has, of course, has been fragmented, like I mentioned before. So right now, mainly this is around here is the wild beast breeding zone, the Nairobi National Park's wild beast breeding zone. And we still see movement of wildlife from Nairobi National Park to the dispersal area because the ecological conditions inside the park are not palatable to wildlife. So usually in the rainy season, you see a lot of wildlife outside of the dispersal area because the community uses this particular piece of land to graze their, cattle, sheep, and goat, and all that. So you know how some of you might be knowing how a sheep, grazes. It eats the grass to the roots. So when it rains, there's a new fresh grass growing, and this is what majorly attracts the ungulates. So there's that movement between of course seasonal. When it rains, all wildlife seem to leave the park, leaving only buffalo, which is used to that strong tuft grass in the park. So when they move outside, other predators follow them, and that's when we normally experience a lot of human wildlife conflict, which we have tried to solve through initiatives such as the Lion Light Project, which is a self-deterrent lighting system, giving an optical illusion to lions that there's someone walking around. It is solar powered. So there are different initiatives which we've implemented to try to control or reduce or minimize the human wildlife conflict during the rainy season. And also, we also tend to create more, I won't say awareness or education because they've lived with this wildlife, but reconnect them to this wildlife. And the perception towards conservation has improved a lot. So again, that has really helped us in the rainy season. And then we also have the scouting project, with the partnership with different communities there, and first Nairobi National Park. So I mentioned before that Nairobi National Park has four of the big five animals. Now this is the fifth big five, an elephant, but in this case, a white elephant in the form of the standard gauge railway to nowhere. So perhaps some of you saw in 2017, it was covered, I think, on BBC and widely covered on different media, how we fought the routing of standard gauge railway through Nairobi National Park. We lost partly, as you can see, it cuts across Nairobi National Park. Of course, wildlife tend to, have used to cross below it and all that. But this made a statement or questioned the Kenya's position in terms of biodiversity conservation and wildlife conservation, because Nairobi National Park is on the face of everyone, closer to the airport, it's close to the central business district, the capital center, the capital city, and all that. So This was a major blow to the Kenya's conservation fraternity. The precedents created by the construction of the standard gauge railway through Nairobi National Park begged the question of really how government or some government agencies see open protected places or areas of ecological importance as prime land for development, alternative land for development. The main problem we had here was the notion of the precedents created. And not only that, we've seen a lot of resurgence of invasive species that now is a second threat to Nairobi National Park. The resurgence of Parthenium, Opuntia, among others. So we are really trying so hard to deal with the impasse caused by this elephant you see on your screen. So more recently, aside from this one, the standard gauge railway, there was the construction of the Southern Bypass, another road construction right inside Nairobi National Park, the oil pipeline, and right now, as we speak, there's the Inland Container Depot Road currently under construction. And all of these have been routed through the park. You can see the precedents created, where they see protected areas as prime land for development, and making the word protected, very rhetoric and ironic in a way, because what is it protected from if now every Tom, Dick, and Harry can go and plant whatever thing they want to plant in those so-called protected areas? The political expediency and construction of the SGR and Southern Bypass trumped the conservation of Nairobi National Park. Big buck projects seem more important to politicians than the iconic park, which is under threat by development, creating a wrong precedence of Kenya's conservation efforts, as mentioned before. So in 2018, 2017, 2018, we had a glimmer of hope when the cabinet secretary in charge of Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife, through of course, the current cabinet secretary, when they developed the National Wildlife Strategy, the National 2030 Wildlife Strategy, provided a blueprint. And one of the main goals of this wildlife strategy was to maintain and improve the ecological integrity of Kenya's parks. And actually, in another meeting, when we had a meeting with the minister, or the cabinet secretary in this case, he mentioned how distraught he was when he realized that the SGR went through the park. That was because initially, before 2017, Kenya Wildlife Service, which is in charge of all the Kenya's protected areas, was under the Ministry of Environment. So it was moved to the Ministry of Tourism, and then became Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife through the current constitution. So he mentioned how distraught he was and all that. So we thought that at least now we have someone at the helm who will protect Kenya's parks. We were very hopeful. He did not stop there. He went ahead and set up a task force who developed the Kenya National Wildlife Corridors and Movement Report. And the main goal of this report was to try to reconnect all the traditional wildlife migratory routes, including the Nairobi National Park's Athika-Piti corridor. He did not stop there. He went ahead again and developed the National Giraffe Conservation Action Plan. That was when Giraffe was moved to Annex 2 under CITES. So, there's a lot of documents, and all these documents are online, and they're very heavy documents. And we say, now, this time we have it all figured out. It was actually even talking of a framework linking Ministry of Transport, Agriculture, and Wildlife, because that's where we normally see a lot of conflict happening. There was hope in 2017 and 2018. Now, I mentioned before the Inland Container Depot Road. That is a road being constructed as we speak inside Nairobi National Park, linking the standard gauge railway to another bypass, which was constructed again inside Nairobi National Park. So you can see two efforts here. The minister launching all these wonderful policy documents and blueprint to guide the conservation sector, while at the same time, the construction are still happening in Nairobi National Park. And to shock you a little bit, the same minister later went and developed the Nairobi National, what they call the Nairobi National Park Visitor Experience Master Plan. And that was when they were revising the Nairobi National Park Management Plan. And this particular document, which we fought this year, and luckily enough we won, well, for now, was the proposal to have, construct high-end high-end hotel inside Nairobi National Park, a private house with a swimming pool and a spa inside the same park, completely fencing off the park, cutting it off from the dispersal area, which serves as a breeding zone for some very highly endangered birds and wild beasts of Nairobi National Park, and actually even host some big cat outside there, and the community who have for years lived in peace with this wildlife. It happened in a span of 2 years, between 2018 to 2020. At the beginning of the year, actually 2018 to 2019, 1 year. We don't know what changed from having a blueprint to maintain and improve the ecological integrity of these protected areas to now, making it a Disneyland sort of with hotels and spas and everything. But there was no focus on a clear strategy of dealing with the invasive species, especially Parthenium, that was becoming a major threat to the park. There was no focus of control banning or improving the ecological conditions of the park. The main argument was that there's no wildlife in the park, they move outside because of the ecological condition outside was palatable for them. So why not improve the situation inside? So that's what we really fought, because it was completely opposite what we thought was going to be a major victory. We still have those documents, they enforce. This particular management plan, we successfully challenged it both in court and through the media and informing the public through, again, another wider strategy we used, on partnership, which I may talk about later. Irony continues. So if you see that photo above, that inside Nairobi National Park, that is the SGR back then we lost. You can see the study with the SGR we lost, and the realize they're powerful, and there was no larger support from the public. And then you can imagine what these lions are going through. This is a construction inside Nairobi National Park. That is a place they've known as a home for a very long time. It speaks 1,000 words. Now, to jump straight to the problem, because I don't have a long, a lot of time remaining. In all this fight, two lessons. In 2017, we fought. We made a statement, no matter how few we were, we made a statement to the government and to the Kenyan people. In 2020, we changed the strategy. We did not go straight to the person causing the problem. We went to the larger public. How? We did not tell them the problem immediately. We approached the private sector through the tour guides and tour companies, because during the corona lockdown, Nairobi was locked down, people are not going to work. So there's a lot of young generation or young professionals staying at home, bored, cases of, teenage pregnancies and people getting depressed. So we told them, we need you to help us because the park is again under threat. And they say, no, we don't have money to support you. So we told them, no, we actually want you to make money while supporting us. How? We want you to take Kenyans in Nairobi to Nairobi National Park, because majority have never stepped foot in the park. There's a huge disconnection between people and nature and wildlife. I'm a victim, because high school through Nairobi, I had never seen a lion. I saw a lion when I joined the organization dealing with wildlife. So from here, we of course made a proposal for them. It was a win-win situation, because initially hiring a vehicle was costing Kenya 8,000 Kenya shillings per day to go to the park. So we told them, how about you only take 6 people instead of 8 or 10, and then charge them 2,000 per person per day. And then you'll make 12,000. But you'll take a lot of people daily. You can make all your cars, because Nairobi has a population of more than 2 million people. So this campaign started on social media, on mainstream media. We don't present the problem at first. We told them, just go to the park and share photos. So people shared photos, and the entire weekend, Saturday and Sunday, and including the weekday, you'd see long queues of Kenyans going to the park. It was a plus. What were we aiming at? Make them fall in love with nature. People fight for what they love. But now the problem is, in 2017 and 2020, between that time when we fought and now, what has been deafening is the silence of the climate change sector, the silence of the human rights sector, the silence of the public health sector. Destruction of Nairobi National Park and the wildlife habitats in Kenya is a climate change issue. one of the major drivers to global warming, increased air pollution, and eventually climate change is the reduction of carbon sinks through loss of biodiversity caused by construction such as what we've seen before. Wildlife habitats holds Kenya's major carbon sinks. So the changes in climate and extreme weather events further affects biodiversity across the globe. It also worsens habitat destruction of exploitation and diseases we've seen so far affecting the areas of ecological importance. So it's sort of like a cycle from the shrinking habitat of the polar bears to increased water scarcity, driving human wildlife conflict, because ideally 80% or 90% of conflicts in Africa is about or revolves around natural resource use. These changes will become more pronounced in years to come if nothing is done. So we continue to experience inadequate concerted efforts to solving environmental problems, because when we approach the climate change sector, there was this notion of, you know what, it's not within our operational jurisdiction, or we don't have funding for it. So our question was, why do we tend to focus more on treating um, 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 the symptoms of a disease, or the disease of, well, biodiversity loss, than the causes? Because if you destroy wildlife habitat, you destroy the biodiversity, therefore reducing the carbon sink. So why was the climate change sector not seeing this as as a climate mitigation initiative to conserve biodiversity? No statement came out. It was left to wildlife conservationists, who again speak to themselves from conference to conference. Therefore, because a lot of money has been spent on trying to advocate for sustainable development. So the question is, why do we still have problems? Why do we have thousands of environmental organizations, but still there's no improvement? It's because year in, year out, we go to conferences and then we meet the same people always. And then we think you're going to make a change. We approach politicians who come and go. That this section here is Nairobi National Park. It is 70%. Nairobi National Park is 70% fenced. The 30% unfenced side transcedes into the community, and that's why you can see this sheep. This is a community wildlife grazing peacefully with nature. If there was poaching, if there was anything, if there was conflict, between or hostility from the local community to wildlife, there would be this, peaceful with the domestic livestock. They will be running away at the sight of anyone, but they are peaceful. They know that's why they defend their security. So this side is the community land. That one is a park. It's not fenced, and that is what was initially to be cut off from Nairobi National Park. So it is a continuous circle, and most sectors seem to focus on, themselves and what they've done, and what they're trying to do, adaptation and all that. We spend a lot of money, capacity building the media, calling, experts to speak to the media in the tough scientific forms, and then they go home, and then we write a nice report to donors, and then thinking, that we've won. We have not achieved the Aichi targets, the Aichi biodiversity targets. And now the focus is now on the 2020 biodiversity targets. Donor funding, again, like I mentioned before, is partly to blame. Why? Because um, 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 most funding tend to focus more on knee-jerk reactions, on efforts responding to wildlife and environmental crisis, so it's already too late. Crisis attracts funding. So organizations, therefore, to attract funding, they dwell more on crisis messaging, or already situations that have gone out of hand, because they get a lot of money. Proactive, pragmatic approaches, as simple as connecting people back to nature, do not attract funding. So the big question is, which I would pose to anyone attending the conference and to myself included, each sector seems to speak to itself. You meet the same people year in, year out in conferences, working to make a change. How about we change the dance move? Do we have deliberate efforts to reach out to the masses in an uncomplex scientific approach? When would wildlife conservation be treated as a climate change issue, and a habitat loss as human right and health issue? How do we empower the media, not just capacity building? How do we empower the media to tell both successful and failed or bad environmental stories? Because ideally, they say bad news sells. But how about changing our perception to avoid the public fatigue of just crisis after crisis after crisis? How about a change in investing in pragmatic initiative towards reconnecting people back to nature. There is a huge responsibility to connect everyone and every sector into joining hands towards a common goal and reconnecting nature back to people. Current efforts, separate a lot of crises and problems and threats and everything seem to separate people away from nature. Therefore, nature falling far from their own conscience. And these are the future leaders. Why don't we focus on those who matter to politicians? Because these are the votes. How about we dance differently and make them fall in love with nature, make people back to nature, and then let them do the fight? How about we have a concerted efforts, then treat wildlife conservation as a human right initiative or a climate change mitigation process? Because it is actually a climate change mitigation process. We do not look at the wildlife as a rhino in itself. We look at the rhino with the ecosystem. Wildlife conservation involves the actual wildlife species, people around it, and the entire habitat. Conservation of wildlife habitats, therefore, is a climate change mitigation process and public health factor. The post-2020 provides an opportunity to rethink if COVID responses is anything to go by, where a nation came together, everyone came together, and we are still coming together to fight one crisis. Environmental degradation is the worst crisis we have right now, more than COVID. How about we give it the similar response we've given to COVID by standing together? To everyone listening to me, what legacy do you as a person want to leave behind towards saving the future? Thank you.